Hey everyone, I have been building up my art career for over 10 years now, where I have tried everything right from selling artworks that I sketched on paper to trying book illustration, graphic design, 3D modeling, and even learning animation, getting a job in Disney, then leaving Disney and starting my own animation studio with my friends, and growing my social media account to over 1 million followers, building different income sources and businesses through all of that, and doing a lot of other things like collaborating with Apple and other brands. And now I wanted to take the most important lessons I've learned throughout my career so far and put them in this one video for you guys, which I have split into 3 main phases that I would love to take you guys through. Now, phase 1 is going to be a beginner to intermediate phase. This is where you love being an artist and you also want to turn it into some form of career, or you're just starting to make an income, or you don't know where to start and you don't know how to build up to make a career as an artist. Okay, there's going to be 15 important lessons for you guys there. Phase 2 is going to be where you are at an intermediate to an advanced level. At this stage, you're already making some form of income, you're a decent artist, you have good skills, you have a decent portfolio of work, but you don't know how to expand it a little beyond yourself, you don't know how to increase your income, you do not know how to build a stable career while being an artist. And there are going to be 12 important lessons in this phase to teach you guys everything that you're going to need to know to achieve that. And finally, we're going to go into phase 3, where we are going to blow up your career and 10x your income, your business, your artistic abilities even, in 8 more lessons that are going to be quite in-depth. Now, just a heads up, some of this might hit a little personal for you guys, and that's okay because a lot of us need to understand these lessons and make some changes if we want to see changes in our life and our art career going forward. Okay, so before we begin, 2 things. You can get a downloadable version of this entire lesson for free down in the description below. Check it out on my Gumroad page for free. It's completely there. And secondly, this is gonna be like a very chill session where think of it as me talking to you guys like in a cafe or something. So grab a coffee, maybe take a notepad, chill out, relax. We're gonna keep the vibes here really chill and just have a nice relaxing session. All right, now let's get started. With phase 1, going from beginner to intermediate, the first lesson that you need to know is that you need to avoid doing these 3 main things. Firstly, avoid having a plan B. Secondly, avoid chasing approvals or grades as your main priority. And 3, avoid trying to plan everything from the start. Now, you do not want to have a plan B because you want to take all your effort and attention into one main thing, which is to be a successful artist. Now, there should not be a case where you are like, if I'm not a good artist, I'll be this. There is only a, if I'm not a good artist, no option, I will be a good artist. You need to be able to trust yourself entirely and build a lot of confidence in yourself that's going to take you and propel you beyond your comfort zone and beyond what you think your limit is. All right, so it's super important to dedicate all your available time, mental energy, resources, and eliminate all the doubts you have to pursuing your career as an artist. And this will make things so much easier because if you have a plan B, you are dedicating some amount of time to giving that thought, giving that effort and all of that. But you want to give everything that you have into one direction for a certain period of time, and that's where you will see the most success. Next is do not chase approvals or grades, because at a college level or at even a social media level where you get likes and engagement, it's not a key factor into determining how successful you are. At the end of the day, your portfolio matters a lot more than your grades you get in college. And the impact you have or the influence you have on your community depends a lot more on social media as opposed to random likes and random engagement. So focus more on what actually matters, like building good art and creating some impact on the world, however you want to be as an artist. And lastly, do not try and plan everything from the start. And this might sound a little harsh to some of you guys, but if you were qualified enough to make that plan, you would already be successful by now. But it's because you do not have the qualification that we keep trying to make plans, keep failing at it, can't stick to our schedules, can't be consistent, all of that. So you need to pick a starting point and then build it up as you go. So if you want to plan, maybe plan for the next 10 days. Do not plan for the next 5 years, the next 5 months, the next 5 weeks, the next whatever. Pick a 10-day goal. It's a little longer than a week. It's good. Little shorter than 2 weeks. So it's not like half a month is gone. And then keep tweaking the plan as you go. Now, lesson number 2 is that you guys need to learn how to study. Okay, so when I talk about studying, I'm talking about two main things. First is study for art, where you take a reference image, can be a photograph, can be something in front of you, can be anything you want, another artist's work, something like that, and create a copy of it to the best of your abilities in order to break down and understand what you are looking at. So there are some rules that you need to follow, which is no tracing, no color picking, and if you want, optional, set a time limit. Okay, as you get better and better, you won't need a time limit, but this is important because it stops you from just spending hours and hours onto it. The idea is to study to the best of your ability. It will look bad at first, but finish it and move on, study more things. And secondly, we want to study the people we look up to, the artists, creators, designers, whoever you might look up to in whatever field. Study what made them popular, study what made them successful, study their journey, and most importantly, study the decisions that they made at what time that got them to where they are. You can always scroll down someone's social media page or their Tumblr accounts, their DeviantArt accounts if you're an artist, like from the OG days, and look at where they began, look at where they started. Okay, that has a huge impact on helping you make some of your decisions as well, because you can see how others have gone about the same journey that you look up to. The next lesson is to keep your tools as simple as possible. When I first started making art, I was overwhelmed with all the brushes, tools, resources, so I had to dial back and just use the default round brush for a long period of time and then develop my own brushes to help me build a more efficient workflow on top of that. Because by then I knew what I liked painting, what my art style was, what textures I liked, all of that, and I built it all from scratch. So keep it very simple. You do not need a complicated workflow. There is no right, no wrong, no need of hundreds of adjustment layers, all of that. Keep it simple, keep it to the point, simplify all the tools. You need the basic devices, go for it. You do not need the best. You do not need a lot of accessories. You do not need much. The simpler it is, the easier it is for you to use, the easier it is to get to it, and the easier it is on your mind. The lesser decisions you have to make, the better. For example, the simplest and most accessible tool for artists is like a pen or pencil and paper. Try and make your digital art workflows or whatever art workflows as minimal as you can to get to that stage, because it just takes away so much drag and decision making on your point. Lesson number 4 is to create before you consume. Now, a lot of us have the habit of, before we sit down to make art, we might look at a lot of reference images, we might look at other artists' work, or we might wake up and start our day looking at our phone and scrolling short form content. It is important to first create before you consume, because you want to build a habit of creating more than you consume. Because if it's the other way around, you are wasting so much time that you could have spent just working on something valuable. Maybe as soon as you get to your desk, whether it's the morning, whether it's the afternoon, whether it's the night, create something. Rely on your own mind, rely on your own creativity. You can have a bunch of references kept aside, but as soon as you get to your workspace or wherever you're making art, just create something and build that into a habit. It'll make you a lot more creative, a lot more productive. And then in your downtime, once you have achieved your task, you can consume whatever you want. Okay. Next is to use time blocks to help you build a system and discipline. Now, what are time blocks? Time blocks are just segments of time that you can have during your day, which are kind of non-negotiable. Now, for example, right now, I could take a timer and set a 60-minute block where I put my phone on airplane mode, where I put all my notifications off, and just sit and make art, or sit and plan, or sit and do some administration work, just for that time without doing anything else. Now, the point of the time block is to remove all distraction away. And you can also have time blocks during the day. For example, one of my schedules I'm running right now is a 7 to 3 time block, where I wake up at around 5:36, get to my studio by 7, work from 7 to 12. That's a nice 5-hour segment. Some of it is deep work, some of it casual work. At 12, I have lunch, 12 to 1. 1 to 2 is kind of administrative work or editing work or something, and 2 to 3 just continues that, or maybe I'm doing a little bit more casual work, and my day ends, like my deep work day ends at 3 p.m. After that, I can go to the gym, meet friends, spend some time at home, or do other casual work after that. So my deep work is 7 to 3, and I get as much as I can done during that. Now, you sustain that for many days, and it's going to be super powered, because you're going to have some days where your productivity is extremely high and some days where your productivity is extremely low. So you want to balance that out and build a system you can just rely on, instead of being extremely productive and doing a lot for like 2 days and then 2 weeks of an art block. because you burnt out. It's more important to just sustain something that's a lot more casual and a lot more easier for you. And when you sit to work, like I said earlier, remove all distractions, turn off your notifications, just work. And now lesson number 6 is to get good at drawing because it is overpowered. Now in today's day and age, we see a lot of tutorials. I'm guilty myself. I just start with colors, paint in some textures to start it, get a lot of cool effects out of that. But for me to get to that point, I needed to be able to draw very well to begin with, because drawing helps you with your art style, helps you exaggerate and know forms, helps you with simplifying things, helps you in your fundamentals and everything, okay? Drawing is the fundamental of good painting. Like, you can paint random textures, but they won't have a good form or structure without knowing how to draw first. And drawing is the easiest thing. Pencil on paper, ink on paper, you can draw anytime, anywhere. Even if you take a default round brush on a tablet, an iPad, Photoshop or anything, just go with a black color default round brush, sketch. Get good at drawing. It's going to be the one skill that helps you the most. Even if you are a rough storyboard artist or a rough designer or something, if you can draw a basic thing and convince other people of your ideas when you're making a pitch or some idea, it's just overpowered. You don't have to explain things, you can just draw and show. It's to do with showing, not telling. So build your drawing skills fast. Next, the 10,000 hour rule. Okay, so there is this rule that says that if you spend 10,000 hours on something, you will achieve mastery at it. I think this actually came from a book where they were figuring out chess masters, grandmasters, and how much time it took for them to become a grandmaster, something like that. I'm not too sure. But now, back in college, we heard about this rule, and a lot of my peers were like, I am going to spend 1,000 hours on a project and have 10 good portfolio pieces by the end of my college years, and that'll be great. I didn't agree with that, because I would listen to a lot of talks, a lot of interviews by top artists on YouTube and all of that. Everyone said that you should practice a lot more. And I decided to make like an artwork in an hour. So 10,000 artworks would teach me a lot faster than just 10 final big projects. Okay, and now because of that philosophy, my artworks went from taking 8 hours to sometimes half an hour to an hour. I can make 8 artworks in the same amount of time. My workflows have increased. I've learned 10 times faster, because all of that adds up so much more. You learn so much by doing 10 different studies of different things than making one finished final artwork. You can always come back in the future once you've developed enough skills to give that artwork enough justice, or give that project enough justice to make it more beautiful than you ever could back in college. Like right now, if I were to take on a project, it would be 10 or 100 times better than the same project that I would do in college, because of the skills I've built. Next is you need to control your environment. Now, if your past or current system of things around you, or whatever you're surrounding yourself with, is not making you better or leading to your artistic goal, it's not a change you need to make just internally, but externally as well. Change the things you're listening to. I'm not saying eliminate everything, just allocate different time for it. Same with the people you're hanging out with. Don't end friendships. Just start hanging around or talking to people who you know are going to be better for your mental health and to lead you on this artistic journey better. Change up your workspace, change up your schedules. Be in full control so that when you sit to make art, you can make art and find something that works for you. I know that life has a way of throwing a lot of things. A lot of us have different responsibilities. Some of us have kids, some of us have full-time jobs, some of us have a lot of other things that come into our life, right? Maybe health issues, all of that. But if we can control it in some way to give ourselves an hour or two every day at some time, maybe early morning, maybe late night, maybe an afternoon break, to just focus on this. This is if you are serious about building an art career. You need to have control over it. You can't just let your day sway you as is and then sit to make art whenever. Build that control and change your environment, and keep changing it till you get more and more better in a way that you can reach your goals. Now, the next lesson is to build a learning group or find one. Okay, so I had this lesson hit me the hardest when I had left Disney and I started an animation company with 3 of my other friends, my college friends. And we learned so much more from each other, because even though we were all animators, illustrators, artists in our own sense, some of us were good at something, some of us really bad at other things, we could learn so much more from the learnings of each one. And the point is, each one of us wanted to desperately improve and be better as artists and build an animation studio together. So due to our personal interest, we would all learn different things. Like I would learn Blender and then go and show the guys Blender. Other friends would learn a bit about animation software and show us, right? Similarly, when four people or any number of people are learning actively, the others also learn that same thing. So because of me learning Blender, my friends had good knowledge of what was possible, what was not. Because of my friends downloading and using new animation software, all that, we're like, oh, so that's how it's done. That's how this effect is got. That's how anime looks like anime, you know? So those things is something that you cannot learn just by yourself, because what others find interesting at first, you might not. And then when they show it to you, you're like, oh, I did not know that. Let me also try that, you know? So build a learning group online or find one. It is key. Lesson number 10 is to ask questions, especially when starting off. When you're a beginner or when you're in college or if you're just starting out, people are going to be your friends and want to help you out because the art community is great. And also someone who's starting out, other people want to kind of tell them and give them information and all of that. This changes a little when you get into the field. Like for example, once you graduate college and you get a job, suddenly people are a little bit more competitive. I can understand everyone wants the same job, right? And it makes sense to build that competitiveness. And it's not like everyone can get hired for the same thing. Same with when an author looks for a book illustrator and people are competing to get that. It's not like you want to help the next person because you want to first fend for yourself. But when you're starting off, that's very different. So ask as many questions as you can to whoever you can. For example, I have juniors coming to me and asking me questions, and they are very early on their art career. And because they just call me up or ask me a question or meet me somewhere and be like, can I have some of your time? I literally called like, I think 15 of my juniors from my art college to my studio space a short while back. And we just spoke for hours. You know, people like to help, and when you're at the stage, it's easy to do that. People are a little bit more accessible, and there's nothing wrong in asking as many questions. There's nothing as a dumb question. You can even ask, is Photoshop a good software to use? Sure, if it works for you, it works. I love Photoshop. Like, ask anything you want, but just get that, because asking questions is going to speed up your journey way faster than not. Okay, you're going to learn so much more just by getting your questions answered. All right, now moving on. Lesson number 11 is to not take advice from people who are not qualified to give you that advice. I cannot tell you the number of times that I have made bad decisions because I listened to people who gave me advice that was not meant for me. I don't want to speak about any specific instances, but it was to do with career, it's to do with how I price things, how to sell. It could do with anything, the kind of art I should make, all of that. And the thing is, sometimes you just have to trust your gut or listen to people who are actually qualified to give you that. For example, if I am an illustrator, I'm not going to give you advice to become like a logo designer and all, because I'm not good at that. I have my own strengths, right? So even though I might give you some general artist advice, if you want proper logo design advice, get it from a logo designer, right? I might just give you the generic audience advice on how I might see the logo, because that's not my strength and that's not my expertise of design. And I'm not that good at branding because I've never been that interested in it. I like more on the concept art, visual development side. That's where my interests lie. Similarly, don't take art advice from a business person who has no idea about art. You know, they might give you business advice and then you take it, but if it's for art, just be a little careful there. Next, 12 is steal from the masters. Okay, what do I mean by steal? Is by looking at artworks or workflows that the people you look up to have made and using that. For example, if I make a lot of blocks and distort it down below and I create a cityscape, use it. Because we artists have taken years to figure out our workflows, and if it works for you, just take it and use it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to figure out your own things. What works, works. And start studying masters like this, start studying the techniques they use. If they simplify trees and do it in a few brush strokes, copy it, try it, see if it works for you, or try some other workflow. Look to steal from the masters because they spend years doing it and you can get it instantly with a little bit of practice, okay? All of us do that. I got most of my techniques looking at others and then reinventing it a bit for myself just by tweaking it according to my workflows. Next, lesson number 13 is that you have to do way more than what you think is necessary. This is going to be a hard hitter, but let's look at college, art school, for example. They give you a lesson. People go back, do the lesson, submit it, get good grades, then chill out for the rest of the day, take a break because they worked hard for the lesson. Fundamentally, that's where you hit your biggest failure because the lessons are supposed to teach you the basics. It's like some school teacher teaching you the alphabet. Okay, you know the alphabet, you know the basics, and maybe you've written one essay. But if you want to become an author, you need to be writing books and books and books and thousands of pages. Similarly, don't just do an assignment. Take it in your time, your available time, whenever you can. Apply it 100 times over and do way more than what just college asks you or some online course and all of that. Go the extra mile because no one else is actually doing that. They think this is enough, but you have no idea how much you underestimate how much is required to get you to that point. When I was learning digital art, I was so bad at it that I quit it once. Then I came back and I did studies of art every single day, where I would spend hours after my college back home making at least one artwork a day, sometimes two, three, for an entire year. I had hundreds and hundreds of artworks, and my portfolio was so ready at the time in my after my third year of college that I got hired into Disney after that. Like without even completing or graduating college, I had that opportunity there for me. So just think that what you're doing is not enough in that sense and go way more. Like don't set these limits for yourself, find them. Now, lesson number 14 is that being great at one thing is way better than being average at many things. Okay, so you do not want to try and focus and be good at characters, backgrounds, animation, graphic design, branding, all of that. You want to build up one strength first, focus and be the best that you can at it, and then build up more and more skills after that. Right? You do not want to multitask at this stage. Fine, get good enough at everything. Okay, get good enough at being able to make a complete illustration or a basic animation or some graphic design, but then focus your whole strength on one thing, because that is where excellence happens and people pay a lot more for excellent work than average. For example, I maxed out background art so much to a point where I was getting hired to do concept art for different places. I was working in Disney. I built up my social media career mainly because of creating beautiful scenes like that, and I could just place normal looking characters into it and it would still look good because of the backgrounds. And now I can focus on other things. I can build up my character skills, I can focus on expressions, I can do animation if I want, I can do so much more after that. Get really good at one thing and you buy yourself back so much time that you can then focus on other things and it's a bit more chill. Okay? Now, lesson number 15 is to understand that things take time. Okay? To go a bit cliche and generic with this example, building an art career is not a sprint where you're going to have people cheering for you the entire way and it's just a short thing where you make a few artworks and it does well, you get likes, all of that. There's a lot more in depth to build a career, but building an art career is actually more like a marathon where at the start of it you have a lot of momentum, you're building your self-confidence, maybe you have support from your friends, family, and if you don't, maybe you made a big decision to build this career. And at the end of the race, when you hit a point of success, that's the only other time where you will see that, okay, this was it, I made it, I made it as an artist, I am now seeing results. But there's a long period in between where you will see nothing. You will be running alone, you'll be making art alone, you won't have any feedback anywhere, you won't see any success online or building your portfolio or getting jobs, all of that. But that's where you just have to trust the process and stick with it and go, and you will see the result after that. It's kind of like building a building as well, where once the architect has made the design, you get to see how the final building will look and it's amazing. But then there's like 2 to 3 years of silence where the building is just being made. And then 3 years later, you see the final thing. But those 2 to 3 years is where all the construction happens. And that's where you have to just build the discipline and stick with it to last those 2 to 3 years. And that's the end of phase 1. We are going to take a coffee break and come back for phase 2. And that's when it's going to start ramping up, because we are going to be talking about making money and a lot more to that. All right, now we're at phase 2, where we talk about some real ways to build your career and get a lot more income. And these lessons are going to help you out. Okay, so lesson number 1 is that you need to create art in the 2 following places. 1 is where you like it, and 2 is where you see a demand for it. So you need to take these 2 and make them match in the middle. So create the things of art that you personally like, because if you do not create the things that you like, it already becomes like a job and a chore for you, and you'll start hating it fast. Okay? And then you take that, your interests, because that's what makes you you. So take your interests and find a middle ground where it meets a demand for it. For example, if you're interested in dark fantasy games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, or Sekiro, or things like that, you try and match it with creating concept art for similar games that has an appeal to the game art industry. But if your interest is that and you try and make art that is princess, Barbie related, or something like that, you'll start dreading it long because it feels like you have to force yourself to do that. And the industry that you're getting in is not the same. So create art where there is a big demand for it and your personal interest. Same thing with social media. It does not mean your posts are going to do well if you like it. It means it's going to do well if the public likes it. So create stuff that you personally like. And I also tweak my art a bit for social media because of that, because I understand people like art that they can relate to, moody, atmospheric scenes, all of that. And that's where I found my comfort zone. Otherwise, I was making random art with random visual development characters like some kids and their adventures and all. And that didn't do well on social media because it was not too relatable to many people. But once I started adding in actual humans with stories behind them and make it a lot more relatable, my account would start blowing up. Lesson number 2 is that you need to be able to create proof. Now, you need to create proof of concept projects for whatever ideas you have that are as easy to execute or create as possible. Now, for example, if you have this idea of making an animated short film or something, a proof of concept for that would be like a 10-second rough cut of what the final thing might look like. Okay, say if it's a 5-minute film, make 10 to 20 seconds of what that might look like. Can be rough, can be with rough colors, can be placeholder background, all of that. But you need to create some proof to show yourself and show the public, show people that I am capable of this. If I get the proper time, if I get the funding, if I get all the resources, it will look like that. So maybe you have a second or two of what the final thing looks like. Then maybe you have, say, even a 5-minute rough storyboard and say, I can get this done. So do never go and try to finish projects at their final stage before first finishing a proof of concept project that you can show to yourself and others and convince them of your ideas. Now, because we set really lofty goals, we end up not even starting or waiting for the perfect time and place to start, which does not work in our favor as artists, where we just need to be creating a lot and living with art. Okay. Lesson number 3 is to build your portfolio based on the places you are applying to. I cannot tell you how many portfolios we would get where the person is extremely talented but has no place in our studio because it didn't match our style, didn't match what we're looking at, all of that. So if you're looking to get into a certain place and that is your dream, build your portfolio with things that are going to help you get to that place. Make your art look like the art that they are looking at. Put only the pieces that would apply to them. Because think about this, when you're getting to a college, you want to add in whatever art you make because the college job is to take you and mold you into a better artist for the industry. But once you're out in the industry, job roles are very specific. So you cannot just have a generic portfolio of random stuff and think that, okay, maybe they'll hire me for this, for this, for that. That is when you work at small studios. But if you want to be the best and grow in the art industry, be a little bit more specific. Build your skills to be really good at one thing, as I mentioned in the previous phase, and look for those opportunities. Okay, don't just try generic art stuff because they'll make you do things you do not like random graphic design, random marketing work, random ads and promos and all that stuff. That's not something you might want to do unless you're interested in that. Hence, build your portfolio accordingly. Lesson number 4, this is a big one because networking can wait. At the moment, if you are a beginner artist, even if you network with the right people, you do not have enough value to contribute back to them for them to even hire you. You might make friends, but then you cannot give them the value that they can put you in a good position yet. And when you reach a position of better skill, or you have a bigger impact, or your art or your work is more valuable in the industry, the people and the network you connect with will be 10 times more valuable than where you are at right now because you're in a different room, you're in a different league, you're in a different place. So networking can wait. Don't bank all in on networking right now. It will come to you naturally. And the point is to be so good that they cannot ignore you. And that leads directly into lesson number 5, which is you need to increase the amount of value you bring to the table. Now, for example, I am not saying to diversify your skill set and be good at backgrounds, characters, all of that. But if you take one of your skills and add layers on top and at the bottom of it, you can expand your value incredibly. For example, if you're good at animation and you're able to then direct other people to also be good at animation and capture your vision, right? You become an animation director. Your role now is a lot higher. You get paid more and you're in a higher position than just being a rough animator. You have now developed the skill of communication and being able to convey your ideas out and convince people that your idea is good. Also, it's a very powerful skill to be able to be a director. It's not for everyone, it's not easy, but to have a vision and to see that through takes a lot of skills, and the industry knows how valuable that is. Same thing, let's go a slightly different track. And if you have some basic skills in background and Blender, just the basics, you could perhaps be able to direct a background artist to make the background a certain way to help your character benefit more in the animation and to direct the scene a lot better. Because now you know the possibilities of what you can do in this software or 3D space, even if it's just the basics, to be able to tell people what to do in it. So you do not need to become a master of many things, but just build complementary skill sets to increase your value. Honestly, the number one skill set that you can build at any time is communication skills and just being able to tell other people your ideas and make them believe in it. Now let's move on to 6, which is where you need to understand that at the start of things, opportunities are always a lot more valuable than the pay you get. Now, if you are a beginner artist or at an intermediate level, the amount of pay you get is not as high as you might like, but it can skyrocket a lot more with developing as an artist, building your skills, having a lot more experience, all of that. The easiest way to do that is take on as many opportunities as you can, as your resources allow you to, as your time allows you to, so you can fail faster, learn faster, and excel a lot more. Now, for example, someone graduates straight out of college and they take a job, any job that they can get. Maybe it's low paying. There's nothing wrong with that. People have their own needs. Maybe they needed money immediately. Okay, so they take that and they slog in that job for a while, maybe 2 to 3 years. On average, you get promoted or you change your job every 3 years or so. So they try that, and the pay is very small and incremental, right? It's very little. But someone who takes a little bit more time, maybe they take a part-time job or something just to survive, and they spend building something that could have a lot more value. Maybe it's a great art project. Maybe it's just skill sets that could get them hired at the highest level. Maybe it's an app for artists or anything, right? You could build something or some plugins for animation. At a point then, 2 to 3 years later, when that is ready, maybe when their portfolio is ready or their app is ready or their plugins are ready, all of that, that is when they make 10 times more income than someone who has been working this job. And because they have been failing fast, trying a lot of things, getting as much opportunity as possible along the way to figure out how to make these things possible, making all the connections, all the opportunity waiting for them at the end of 3 years is a lot more, and the pay is a lot more, and your career just keeps kind of doubling like that as you keep going higher, instead of just staying with the same job and maybe improving 1 hour every night with some artwork or something like that, right? Because jobs hire you at the position you are currently at. They do not hire you to spend time and invest into you to get you better. They're already hiring you for where you're at, and that's why a lot of people tend to stagnate. So think about grabbing as much of opportunities as you can, even if you're in a job or anything, because opportunities will always be better than pay if you can afford to live and just survive. Okay, that is the main case. That leads to point number 7, is to not wait for opportunities, but create them. An example is during the pandemic, when we were all locked in at home, one of my friends who was producing and creating music asked me if I could make some animated loops for him, and he would put it out. So I worked with him and we would put this out for free, right? Didn't tell anyone it was for free, but I'd get his music to use. He'd get animated loops. And we put out like this 5-second loops and all that, but it was like a lo-fi video with his music in the background. And these would do well. Now, I didn't have a big social media following at the time, neither did he, but whoever did see. Now, my work is now exposed to his music friends. His work is now exposed to my artist friends. And some of the friends contacted me to make full-fledged music videos for them and pay me a decent amount at the time. So from that, I could then make music videos. I could then build up more opportunities, branch out of it, become an animator. I could do a lot more animation. I could work with more music artists, all of that. And the opportunities would then keep piling on. Similarly, you can find so many opportunities for yourself, where I've seen people, some artists out there, they go to like local vendors and they're like, can we redo your sign for you? And they just redo the sign with the pricing and all on it, give it to them for free. But now that works as a great portfolio piece for them to show that they have actual some real world application of what they've been doing. And it's a viral trend for social media to do, because it's so cool. You're like taking this vendor on a cart, and you're rebranding them and making them look a lot better just with the sign, and it looks a lot more professional, and it's nice and gives them a sense of like feeling like, hey, this is cool, what I'm doing actually looks good. So there are a lot of opportunities you can keep building for yourself in that sense, and you never know when the next thing is, so do not wait, just start acting on it immediately. Now let's move on to lesson number 8, which is that you guys should not stop learning once you gotten a job. Now, once you get a job and you get hired, like I told you earlier, they hire you for your set skills in that point. They do not hire you to get better, because they are not paying on investing in you to become a better artist. They just want you at that point to come in and get the job done. A lot of people stagnate here because of that, because they do not keep excelling or learning more. They might learn a lot of other skills, like people skills, administrative skills, management skills, but maybe not necessarily art skills, unless they're in a studio or workspace that pushes them more. But in most cases, more often than not, they tend to just stagnate with their skills, and their work life tends to become a little bit more corporate, where it's like 9 to 5 work, and then you go chill out for the day, enjoy the weekends, all of that. That is usually a bit counterproductive for us artists, especially if we are incredibly ambitious and we want to increase our income a lot and build an art career, be a bit more iconic, make a big impact, all of that. So have your job, it's needed, get your experience working in the job, get your income, all of that, but keep learning going. An hour a day of just learning and experimenting can compound to so much over time. Just 20 minutes a day for a year equals 100 hours. That's more than enough to learn anything you want. Okay, so imagine 300 hours of learning at the end of the year. That's insane. Okay, next is to separate work from play. Now, when art becomes our career, we tend to put too much focus on this brings our bread and butter, everything needs to look good. So even when we make rough sketches for fun, we tend to stress out about it and try and focus too much on trying to make it look good, and then we get depressed if it doesn't look good. So create a good separation between having art that you make for your work, for your career, for your practice, all of that, and just art totally for fun. I like doing this by just switching up mediums or switching up subject matter. For example, if I'm really good at backgrounds, I won't make that for fun. I'll do something like characters, which I'm not the best at. So then I don't have that pressure on myself to be good at it. I already know mentally I am bad at this. So I am now going to take this and draw it badly, but I'm still going to have fun. Maybe I'll get better over time. The point about fun is not to practice. The point about fun is not to make your other art better. The point about fun is just to have fun because you love being an artist, and it keeps you going. It keeps your soul alive. It keeps you creative. You can switch media. You can try different methods. You can try animation or Blender or something just entirely for fun. Treat it like a hobby. Separate it from your main work. Okay, lesson number 10 is to learn how to simplify everything. Now, this goes into your business, your workflow, your art, the way you communicate with people. Simplify everything. Okay, no one likes things that are complex or too complicated for others to understand. For example, if you're building a portfolio, don't send someone on a journey to find your portfolio link or your best work. Like, now there's some animation playing, then you move the cursor, then it opens some roadmap, and then it all looks creative and nice. But that's not going to impress anyone if your work is not good. When people click on your portfolio, the first thing that they should see is your work. Maybe the last thing they see is about me, because then they're like, okay, this work is good. What about this person? They're never going to be like, oh, this person, we like the person, is their work okay? Now, if they're looking for a job for a specific position, they are looking for work, and then it matters about everything else, your personal life, all of that comes as a secondary factor. Similarly, with your art, your workflow, make it as simple as possible to get to work, make it as simple as possible to go from start to finish, or what your usual workflow likes. Systemize everything. If you have a typical way of editing your videos, make it as simple as possible. Save your presets, save your brush sets, save everything so that you don't have to redo everything once you get to it. The more you simplify and optimize your life, the more time you are buying back to just make art for fun and just do your best. Now, lesson number 11 is to learn how to explain your vision and ideas to someone else. This is incredibly important, because what we don't realize, for example, if you're a freelance artist and there's a client who is asking you for something, right? You give them a deck, or you give them information on a call, or just pitch something to them with your ideas. A lot of times that person on the call is going to have to take your ideas and tell it to someone else, maybe the rest of the team, maybe higher ups, and convince them on your behalf to go ahead with you, or convince them of your ideas. Okay, so this happens more often than not. Now, it's very important that that second person, that middleman, is able to convey your ideas and transfer it, because they're not going to take a 20-page PDF slide and send it to their higher up, because that person doesn't have time to read it. They have 5 minutes to make a decision, usually in these cases where they like something or not. It's in the first 30 seconds they see something, their mind is already made up. Oh, that looks good or not. So what you want to do is make it as easy as possible for the next person to tell the next person about your ideas. This is a skill that most artists do not have. They just focus on making art, but not marketing themselves or making it easy for other people to understand their idea and their vision. That's very different in the modern art world, where the audience can interpret and make their own decisions like that. But it's very different in a world where other people are paying you money for a certain job that you have to do for them, and you want to convince people to hire you as an artist for certain things, and your ideas have to be as easily as transferable as possible. So build up that skill. Take a look at your work from the eyes of an outside person. See, is this understandable to the average person? If not, simplify it and learn how to talk to average people. You do not need to use sophisticated words. I'm not going to tell someone I'm using Rembrandt lighting in that sense. I'm just going to be like 3-4 dramatic lighting. You know, I want this rim light on my face and all of that, like it's on my silhouette. So think of it in that way, okay? A lot of people do not understand the world you see it. You live in your own head. So try and live in someone else's head and make your ideas as easy to transfer as possible. This also translates to working with other people. You're going to need to expand your team, hire people, work with more people in order to increase your income and your business. This is a big skill that comes in handy there. And lesson number 12 is to start building relationships before you need them, because you never know when opportunities will come and you will then need the right person for that, or you can collaborate with people. But do not make things too transactional, being like, I'll do this for you and all of that. Start meeting people, start being genuinely interested in other people and genuinely want to talk to them about art and make friends, all of that, because that is where the wealth of your future will lie in. Like they say, your net worth is in your network. But if it's too transactional and too business minded, it's just a transaction, okay? It's too logical. Make friends, start talking to people, going to events, just chatting with people, and you never know the opportunities that'll come for that, because also outer sight is outer mind. When they see an opportunity that might not be for them, but they think of you, they'll probably tell that other person about you, and you'll get that because of the relationships that you built. Okay, so that is the end of phase 2. So we're gonna have another coffee break and then come back and finish phase 3, which is going to be intense. Okay, this is where we blow up our careers. It's going to be quite detailed and in depth. All right, guys, third cup of coffee for phase 3, where we are going to now talk about blowing up your career. The very first lesson you need to know is to collaborate with people who complement your skill set, not copy it. Now, if you start collaborating with people who do the exact same thing as you, it does not work out. For example, if you're making an animation, you're a good animator, get a good background artist. You know, that's how it works. Or then collaborate with someone who's good at sound design, collaborate with a good writer, you know. Don't collaborate with another animator who does the same character animation as you, or someone who's a little better or a little worse than you, because that just does not utilize your skills in the best place possible. You need to be able to push yourselves in different ways to move ahead, like make great backgrounds, make great animations, all of that. Collaborate with people for practice and learning who do the same skill set, but not for building a business and building your empire, building your career, all of that, because it's more to do with teamwork and smart collaboration there, as opposed to just becoming better artists. That you have to do anyway. Okay, lesson number 2 is that you can get the best ideas from people who aren't artists. Now, back in our time at Disney, we would often have meetups where we would have the entire group of people from the marketing department, from product, from the dubbing teams, all of that, with us discussing our animation ideas, where we would pitch them something and they would give us ideas for it. And they would sometimes give us the best ideas, because everyone gets ideas all the time. Just because they are not in a creative field does not mean that they are not a creative person. It's important to remember that we make art for an audience. That is why we get paid. That is why we build a business, all of that, which is why I said separate work from play, because when we're doing play, that's just art for ourselves and we love it. But when we are working, we do know that this is meant for a target audience or for something else in particular that is not for ourselves. Take ideas from your audience, take ideas from people who aren't artists, and you never know how mind blown you might get with the ideas other people have. They need not know the technicalities of how to do things. That's up to you. Get the rough idea. Even if it's not possible and you really like it, figure out how to make it art friendly or design or animation friendly and make it possible. Now, lesson number 3 is to be as ready as possible for any opportunities that might come your way. For example, you have your portfolio ready, you have a website ready, your links in your bio are very optimized so that people can just click once and get dragged there automatically. You have your rate card ready if that applies to you. If you need to have rates, all of that is ready. Do not wait for someone to come and ask you for things for then to figure out, okay, how do I do this, right? So where do you start? Start by looking up at the artists who are successful and see how they have done their stuff, how accessible they are. Do they have a website? Do they have a contact me? How does that work? What are they selling? How are they selling prints? How are they doing work? What kind of commissions? What all websites are they using? Take what works for you, apply it, and get on that as soon as possible. Don't just have an Instagram page and say DM me for commissions. That works at a base level. But if you want to build a business and build your empire, start expanding, maybe you'll have a team that can run this for you in the background. Okay, so set it up in a place that in the future you are ready for the opportunity when it comes. Lesson number 4 is that knowing where your money comes from is important. Now, when we are at an intermediate level and we make art, we put up on social media, we take freelance opportunities whenever we can, we make enough to survive. And it sometimes blows up and you can go viral, you can get a lot of e-products downloaded, all of that, and you might do well. But if you want to build a strong business that can 10x your income and grow a lot more, you need to know who your target customers and what you are giving to them so that you can make a business plan accordingly and excel at that thing. For example, if you're an animation studio that is targeting corporate spaces for their explanatory videos, their pitch decks, all of that, then you now know how to structure your resources and time. You're like, okay, we need to reach out to and pitch these 4 companies this week. So we need our pitch decks ready, we need examples of what we can do for them, and we start outreaching to them. And similarly, we then promote our videos like this. We have a website that does this. We have our price rates already ready. We have outreach. How are we getting there? What is our marketing strategy for all of these things? Similarly, if you're a photographer, how do you reach a certain type of client? And who is that client? Are you doing weddings? Are you doing corporate spaces? What are you going to excel at, right? I know this is a higher level of talking, but for you guys who are at that stage, I know I'm talking to you guys. If y'all are watching this, you guys need to lock in on who your customer is and build it up from there. Okay, target your resources towards that. Next, being business minded is equally important as being creative minded if you are looking to build a very successful career as an artist. Now, if you're not business minded, I would say hire that out. But when you're starting off, it's good to have that full control. Like, for example, great directors can just focus entirely on directing work because they've hired out the business admin minded part to someone else, their management, to do that for them, their manager or whatever that. But they still understand the business of things very well. They have their standards, they have their schedules, they have the timings, everything. Now, what does it mean to be business-minded? Business means money in. That's all what business-minded means. So you have to think about how is money going to come into this. Now, I'm going to add another layer to this. How do you make money? You make money when you provide value to someone. So actually, you need to be thinking about how is your art valuable to someone else so that they can pay you money for it and get that value from you, right? I'm not talking about being greedy and just trying to make money. So think about how to be as valuable as possible. In turn, as a side effect, you make as much money as possible. Lesson number 6 is to do not try to do everything by yourself. A lot of us artists and designers are one-man army people. We try and just lock in and do everything ourselves. And because we are an artist and designer, we are a bit too strict about how things look. We are a bit too protective. Oh, I could have done that better. I could have done this better. But you need to learn to expand your resources. You need to learn to invest. Every day, if you're not investing into something beyond that, you are missing out on big opportunities. So what I mean by investing, you need to invest into improvement, better software, better devices if it's needed, better people working for you. Maybe they're more qualified, maybe they're better, maybe they suit your vision better. Think about how you're going to invest so that you don't have to do things entirely by yourself. A lot of people are investing into software these days because the software does a lot for them. So think about how you can start investing instead of just being in the same place and trying to work harder to achieve goals that you might not reach. Instead, be in the same place, work hard, but invest so that you get a higher return while working the same amount of time. Lesson number 7. In today's day and age, I am going to give you a 6-step guide on how a rough roadmap to success looks like. Okay? Step 1 is you have to get good at something. And I mean good, not great at this point, because great means you're kind of like some of the best in the world, but get good enough that you are way better than the average person at that. Now, step 2 is to get attention to that. For example, if you are an artist and you're putting out art on social media, start getting attention to a point where now your stuff is going viral, you're getting engagement, all of that, which means you now have to develop a second skill, which is marketing yourself. So market your art in such a way that it gains attention. Step 3 is to start getting money from that. Now that you have attention, now you have people asking you for more. Now you have people asking you for tutorials, for guides, for help. Start giving people what they want. Start setting up a website, start selling downloadable products, start doing mentorship, start doing calls. Whatever it is that you can do to gain money, get that. Step 4 is whatever is working to make that money is to now scale it. Now, whatever you're doing, try and double it, try and do more of it. If you're selling downloadable products for $5, make a downloadable product for $50 and make a few of them. Okay, make them so valuable that people will see it for $50 and feel like this should have been like hundreds of dollars. Try that and scale it. Scale it to a point where you are now putting in the same amount of work, but you have spent time building something, and now you're doing the same amount of work for social media, doing the same amount of work for engagement, but your income is now increasing. Step 5 is to now invest it back into something that is bigger. Okay, not just these downloadable products, all of that. For example, if you're an artist like me who is scaled downloadable products and putting out social media videos, getting millions of views, you can now have like an online education platform. You can have online resources. You can set up an entire online school with people under you to teach people on how to do what you're doing, right? A lot of YouTubers do this, a lot of creators do this, and that is how you scale it up. Okay, so then you're still involved in this at this stage. But step number 6 is to build a personal brand. Okay, so start putting your face more out, start talking confidently, start being the face of your brand, because then your face and your value is a lot more valuable than just the art you make. Okay, and that allows you to translate so much more into just being an artist, into being a business person, into building contacts on a different level. Because if you transfer that value of your art onto you as a person, it opens up avenues that you would never know. You can now transition to adjacent markets, video, YouTube, the education space, anything to do with that, because you have now built a big business for yourself and you are seen as the founder of that. And that's where your personal brand matters a lot. Building a strong personal brand also allows other people to relate onto you because they see you as a person. Now, lesson number 8 is how to actually make money while you sleep. Now, this is a guide I actually got from MJ DeMarco from one of his books. It was either Fast Lane Millionaire or Unscripted, on how to build something that makes money while you sleep. So you need to remember these 5 letters: CENTS. CENTS. Your business needs to fall under these 5 things for you to reach a point where you are successful enough for you to be able to just sleep and make a lot of income and have all the time in the world to go make whatever art you want. C stands for control. You need to be able to have control over your operations, over your business. Do not give away that control. And control does not mean that you have to own something. For example, Uber does not own a single car, but it controls the entire fleet of drivers and the cars with apps and software and all of that. But the ownership of the car lies with the driver or that organization. Control doesn't mean ownership, but you need to be able to be on top and control your business. E stands for entry. Now, the thing about entry that you need to know is that if something has an easy entry into it, for example, like social media is very easy to enter into, where you just need a phone and an internet connection to just record a video of yourself, edit and put it up. It means that you need to be executionally excellent. It means that the work you need to put out has to be excellent for you to break out into social media and do well. But if the entry into something is a lot harder, it's a lot more niche, like someone is providing asphalt for metro pillar construction, something like that. It's incredibly niche, right? But there's only one or two companies that are doing that because of how niche it is. The entry is easier, but it takes a lot more to get there. So understand this, there are different ways to enter into these markets. Understand the cost of your entry, okay? Remember, a lot of people are doing social media now, but it means that you have to be excellent at it. Don't just expect it if you're just doing what other people are doing. Strive to be excellent, okay? Now, N stands for your business needs to solve a need for someone else. Don't just do it for your own hobby. If it's not solving a need for someone else, there's no point running it as business. You're just doing it for fun. That's a completely different thing. But look for a need that you are solving. For example, I see that a lot of people need better tutorials to make art and need courses and all of that. So I teach people in my own style, in my own workflow. I see a need for that. Okay, T stands for time. Whatever you build needs to be able to buy back your time for it. For example, mentorship calls is not something that really buys back your time because you have to give your full hour to the other person. Well, sure, you can increase your rates to such a point that you can not do calls for a month, but it's a little more difficult than just creating a downloadable product and not having to spend any more time on it anymore because you've made it once and now it can sell for however long as you want, right? That's the difference. So you spend a lot of time creating the product and then you don't have to spend any time on it. So buy back your time. And S stands for scale. Whatever you make needs to be able to scale. For example, mentorship calls cannot scale beyond a certain point. Sure, you can scale the income on it, but at the same time, you cannot take any more calls, okay? But for example, downloadable products are very scalable. Maybe an online school is very scalable. You can expand, you can hire people. Any business that is scalable beyond you, just yourself. Like a lot of people have started businesses that just run without them because they were the seed. They spent a lot of investment into it and now they can just relax and enjoy. And that is what it means. Okay, let me give you a good example. Being a traditional artist is very unscalable because you are one person making one artwork that might take you weeks or a month, like a big painting, and then you sell it. Sure, you can sell it for a lot of money, but to get to that point is very difficult. As opposed to, for example, a digital artist who sells prints or sells any number of products that they can keep scaling up on with that same digital artwork, and it's a lot faster, it's a lot more convenient, and you can sell downloadable tutorials for that. It's a different market space, but it's a lot easier in that sense, which is why we see a lot of digital artists coming into the space. It's a lot more scalable, it's a lot more low effort than traditional art, and it buys you back more time. So same with mentorship calls. You can't scale how much time you have available in a day for calls, okay? But you can, for example, upload a digital product and not have to worry about that again. And you can keep scaling that by focusing more on the marketing and reaching new clients. So think about the scalability and think about sense, okay? And that is it. That is a lot of lessons that I have now put out for you guys. And I hope this video was helpful for y'all. And thank you guys so much. Stay tuned for a lot more videos. Check out my Patreon, check out my Gumroad, check out my Instagram, everything. And yeah, on to the next one.